Why do we listen to the same songs again and again? That's the search query that sparked all of this. You see, I am the sort of guy who loves discovering new songs and new artists and new genres, but I'm also someone who will listen to the same 8 tracks for 4 months straight. But turns out I'm far from the only one who does this. According to a study on music listening habits, around 86% of people listen to their favorite songs every single day. In fact, 43% of those listen to the same songs multiple times a day. That's a bit weird, isn't it? I did not find any similar studies for other media like books and films, but I'm fairly certain that we love rewatching and rereading as much as we love re-listening. Since it seems to be the most prevalent, let's start with re-listening. The first main primary chief and principal reason why I and presumably so many of us listen to the same songs again and again, probably just laziness. I have playlists set up and all I do is open Spotify, click play and sometimes plug in my headphones. This very small amount of effort is so appealing to so many of us, especially since the time we are least likely to go search for new music is when we are already listening to some. And while it can be intellectually argued that this habit reflects a preference for familiarity and comfort over exploration and change, the truth is more straightforward. It is just easier to listen to what we already know and like. While there is definite pleasure in discovering new music, the effort required is often not worth it. I think most of us have 2 modes of listening to music. Mode 1 is when the music is just background noise. This is the music we play when we are doing chores or when we are out running. Mode 1 is also the mode most of us are most times. So it stands to reason that most of us are not going looking for new music all the time. Mode 2 is when we are actually invested and engaged in the music. And while we enjoy music in both modes, Mode 1 is not really when we are thinking too much about it. But the biggest reason why we re-listen is probably just how much of an emotional impact music can have. On days when we particularly feel like a piece of chewed up celery, music rocks, and music that brings with it a sense of comfort and coziness rocks even harder. A study from earlier this year out of the University of Michigan found that people listened to songs on a loop because of how the song made them feel, with most participants choosing to listen to bittersweet songs that were likely to evoke the most emotion. And that makes sense considering how much of a connection we develop with the songs we love. We listen to our songs to get the warm fuzzies, the heart skips and the feels. That is why we re-listen. I am the least pretentious reader I know. That's not saying much since I don't know many people who read as much as I do, but I would read just about anything if it makes me curious enough. This includes everything from classic gothic literature, to obscure fan fiction, to web novels, to comics to way too long Reddit threads. So branching out into weird genres has never been a problem. It's branching out to different books in those genres that causes me heartburn. As someone who spends an awfully unhealthy amount of time on book suggestion forums, I am awful at actually going beyond my favorite genres and styles. More than that, I often find myself reaching for my more than a little dog-eared copy of Lightning Thief over the many new books I have. I think there are a few reasons for this. Firstly is comfort. Books, no matter what they are about, have always been this thing of comfort for me. They fill me up with a very particular sense of warmth that's impossible to replicate. So it makes sense why our reptile brains would want to double dip in that comfort. The second reason is a bit harder to put to words. I call it the hear it comes effect. These are the times when we eagerly anticipate a favorite scene in a movie or that particular bass drop in a song. There is a build-up of tension as the moment approaches and our mind transitions from wondering what will happen next to knowing exactly what will happen and savoring it. These pivotal moments get deeply etched in our memories and are a big part of why we love to reread our favorite books. The third reason is both the most common and the least interesting, and it's a sentiment I simply cannot relate to. Because when it comes to absorbing actual useful real-world knowledge, I am about as eager as a cat facing a bath. And while there are a few topics I am fanatical about, the thought of cracking open a finance textbook to refresh my memory on some old forgotten concepts does not exactly excite me. So unless it's a discussion about the intricate details of the Greek pantheon, or just about anything related to the Second World War, practical knowledge isn't really something that captures my attention. But then I suppose it's why most people reread, even if this most does not include idiots like me, who mostly indulge in fiction. We rewatch for many of the same reasons we reread or re-listen, the same cocktail of familiarity with a dash of escapism and nostalgia. But there are a few more perks to watching the same show an unhealthy amount of times. Firstly, there is the act of zoning out. Honestly, one of our favorite reasons for rewatching a show is to just let it play in the background while we are lost in thought about something else entirely. Watching something familiar has a calming effect, helping us navigate through the clutter of our minds. It is hard to count the number of times I've had Stranger Things on while folding laundry or tackling something mundane. There is comfort in knowing the dialogue by heart, in knowing the next scene without even needing to look at the screen. It is like wrapping ourselves in a cozy blanket, immersing ourselves in a world where everything is familiar and predictable, unlike the real world. But there is also the opposite to this, where we rewatch a show not to just let it play in the background, but rather to consume it again. There is an undeniable unique pleasure we all derive from immersing ourselves completely into the intricate details and subtle nuances of a piece of media. This is pleasure that is born out of a deep appreciation for the art of storytelling and the complex layers that make up a well-crafted narrative. Many shows, particularly those crafted with care, have these layers. You rewatch them for the fourth time and still notice something new. Emotional catharsis is also another reason why we just love to rewatch. Rewatching a show can serve as emotional release. We become attached to the characters, their journeys, and their struggles. These connections can help us process our own emotions. Watching our favorite characters face their problems and usually succeed can be very comforting. And then there is the aspect of community. Shared experiences are incredibly powerful, and many shows, whether famous or obscure, create vibrant communities. Discussing plot twists, fan theories, or character arcs while rewatching a favorite show strengthens our connection to others who share our passion. It offers common ground, ignites conversations, and becomes a way to bond over shared interests. Anticipating favorite scenes or episodes brings a unique sense of excitement and joy. It's like hearing the punchline to a joke you already know, yet laughing every time. This predictable pleasure is simple yet profound. Rewatching shows, movies, or videos on YouTube is more than just revisiting something that's so familiar. It offers comfort, emotional catharsis, community, and a sense of joy. In a world filled with uncertainties, returning to the known and beloved can be a deeply satisfying and meaningful experience. Undertale is one of the best games of all time. That, I think, is more of a fact than an opinion at this point. I first played Undertale back in 2017 and have not replayed it since. Given my tendency of reliving cherished experiences, this is the most surprising. But something in me deeply opposes the idea of replaying Undertale, and I think I know why. You see, Undertale, the first time I played it, was one of those experiences that's impossible to replicate. The only thing replicable is how I felt when I played it. The first time we experience a strong story, or song, or anything that deeply resonates with us, it makes a big impression. When we go back to it, we are trying to feel the same emotions again. It's not merely about reliving the story or melody, but about reconnecting with the feelings they stirred within us. This desire for emotional resonance drives us back to familiar territory time and time again. So I ask you this, when we re-experience something, what are we actually seeking? When we read a book, rewatch a movie, replay a game, or re-listen to a song, are we hoping to enjoy it like the first time, or are we hoping to relive how we felt that first time? We are not hogs, not literally at least, not most of us. But we are hogs in the sense that we consume, and what we consume is a concerning amount of content and information. Take audiobooks for example. Before I say anything, I should mention that I love audiobooks, but they are the perfect example of media that's catered perfectly to us. It has changed reading from something that takes a lot of time and energy, and sometimes a lot of money, to something that can be done functionally anywhere with a lot more ease. With platforms and creatives constantly fighting for our very limited attention and very limited time, we have gone to a point where it's all algorithms. This has led to passive consumption, where we mindlessly scroll through content without fully absorbing anything. So going back to your books, to your movies, and to your songs not only gives us comfort, but also a small break from the complete fish market that is our digital world. Also, I feel like I should apologize to any hogs listening to this. Now, I keep going on and on and on and on about comfort and returning to what's familiar, but how exactly does that work? Our tendency to favor what we know over what we don't can be attributed to two cognitive processes within our brain. These are the mere exposure effect and the choice supportive bias. The mere exposure effect suggests that we develop a preference for things simply because they are familiar to us. In the realm of media consumption, this bias leads us to gravitate towards content we have already encountered before, even if there are objectively better options out there. Similarly, the choice supportive bias causes us to retroactively justify our decisions, leading us to believe that our favorite media is inherently superior, regardless of its objective merits. The last thing I wanted to touch on was fandoms. Just about everything under the sun today has its own fandom now. A fandom, if you are unaware, is basically a community of complete nerds, all buzzing around a shared interest. Even the most niche, the most obscure, and the rarest of gems have their own communities now. Sharing your love for a book series or a TV show with others who appreciate and validate your feelings deepens your own emotional connection with the characters and their world. This shared enthusiasm not only strengthens your bond with the story but also enhances your desire to revisit it, fostering a deep connection.